This week marks a year since the government announced demonetisation. In an interview to me, former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh speaks about the impact of demonetisation on the broader economy and the challenges facing the nation as we look forward. Dr. Singh was uncharacteristically vocal in his opposition to demonetisation when it was announced a year ago. I asked him how would he assess the impact of it now, 12 months later.
Dr. Singh says, and I quote, "Slowing GDP is merely one indicator of the economic damage. Its impact on the weaker sections of our society and business is far more damaging than any economic indicator can reveal." One immediate manifestation of the damage has been on jobs. 3/4 of non-agriculture employment in our country is in the small and medium enterprises sector. This sector has been hit the hardest due to demonetisation. Therefore, jobs have been lost and new jobs are not being created. I also worry about the longer-term impact of demonetisation. Headline GDP may well start to show an improvement after the recent lows, but rising inequality has been a constant threat to our nature of economic development. Demonetisation may exacerbate such inequalities, which can be harder to rectify in the future.
The government has subsequently come out with other objectives for demonetisation, such as a cashless economy or a digital economy. I asked him how important are these as economic priorities for our nation.
In reply, Dr. Singh says, quote, "Objectives such as a less cash or digital economy are laudable pursuits, but we also need to get our economic priorities right. It is unclear that these goals of cashless economy will indeed help small enterprises become larger and achieve scale efficiencies. That should be our priority. These small and medium enterprises are the backbone of India's economy and labour markets. It is unwise to sabotage this sector in some rhetorical pursuit of a digital economy. Any behavioral change cannot be coerced or forced. It has to be nudged and incentivized, as behavioral economists have found. Digital or cashless economy is a mere post facto justification for what was fundamentally a flawed economic policy.
Economic measures such as GST, demonetisation are often touted as hard pills that India must swallow to formalize its largely informal economy. Is formalization a necessary condition for long-term sustained economic growth? If yes, what is the best way to achieve it?
Dr. Singh says, and I quote, "The value created by the informal sector will be captured in the form of income, wealth, or consumption effects. Hence, we must be cautious about the sweeping generalizations about the informal economy and passing moral judgments about the entire sector. Having said all this, it is very important for a nation such as ours to build strong state capacity to lift our standards of governance. This is possible only when we increase our share of tax revenues. If formalization of the informal sector means a widening of the tax base, it should be welcomed. But the means is as important as the ends."
Dr. Singh spoke about the importance of institutions. He is also a former RBI governor. I asked him about the impact of demonetisation on institutions of policy making and governance in the country.
On this, he says, quote, "The Reserve Bank of India was bypassed and overshadowed in one of independent India's most significant monetary policy decisions. This is a cause for concern. I am not for a moment implying complicity of the RBI, and I am very sure that the RBI did not have a choice. I am equally confident that the governor of the RBI will strive to regain credibility and independence of the institution. But I am very concerned about the creeping culture of erosion of institutions in other spheres."
Dr. Manmohan Singh famously warned that demonetisation could derail economic growth by 2 percentage points. I asked him if he feels vindicated now.
"This is not about vindication," says Dr. Singh. He adds, and I quote, "In fact, I strongly feel the time for politicking over demonetisation is over. It is time the Prime Minister graciously acknowledges the blunder and seeks support from all to rebuild our economy. There comes certain moments in a democracy's history when economics should take precedence over politics. It is one such moment now in India.